You're listening to the premier podcast for men who want to not only be better with women, but want to be better men in general. This is the Come On Man podcast. And here's your host, Paul Bauer.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another week of Come On Man. If you haven't done so already, please like, fave, subscribe, hit those notifications. If you're listening on your favorite audio platform of choice, please give us a 5-star review and actually write out something telling us why you like the show. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you comment. Even if you just comment the word comment, that kind of stuff boosts the algorithm. It's weird. All right. This episode is purely a fun episode. I mean, one could say that it's about purpose, maybe, but in reality, it's sort of a fan requested episode because a lot of people, if you're watching on YouTube, comment about my wrestling belts in the background. And, it really comes down to the fact that I'm a big pro wrestling fan. And so someone's like, hey, you need to interview a wrestler. So I did. I booked a wrestler. So joining me this week is, in my opinion, one of the coolest independent wrestlers out there. His real name, or shoot name, as they say in the business, is Steve Islas. He's better known on the independent wrestling circuit as Navajo Warrior. He's one half of one of the best tag teams out there, the Tribe. His partner is the Hawaiian Lion. And he's just an all-around good dude. I've been following him for years. If you see back here, that picture right there, that was at the first independent wrestling show I ever went to. And the headliner of that was Rey Mysterio. So I got to meet Rey Mysterio. And he and Steve, or Navajo Warrior, was one of the in one of the matches. So at the end of that show, it was really cool. I went down by the ring, talked to the ring crew, got to pull on the ropes a little bit, got to knock on the mat. A lot of people think that those wrestling rings are like, springy, and they are a little bit, but if in reality, it's boards, it's planks of wood that are out there. And so, I mean, it's hard as shit. And there's like just a little thin bit of padding on top of that. Otherwise it's pretty stiff, But after I went down to the ring, I got to take a few pictures with some of the wrestlers, and one of the wrestlers was Navajo Warrior and his partner, Hawaiian Lion. And I've been following those guys ever since. That picture is lost forever now because the gal who I went with took the picture, and she and I don't talk anymore. One of these days I'm going to have to go to a show that he's at and get another picture with him. But yeah, he follows the podcast on Instagram. And so I reached out to him and I was like, hey man, would you be down for an interview? And he's like, hell yeah. So he's not only an independent pro wrestler though, he does strongman competitions, which I think is fascinating. I love strongman too. Like if I'm not watching wrestling, I'd love to watch a strongman competition. And he's also the licensing manager for WWE 2K games, and their WWE 2K22, I think, just came out at the time of this. So yeah, without any further ado, I'm going to bring you that conversation with Steve Islas, the Navajo Warrior, right after this. This episode is brought to you by GhostBed. You want to get laid, right? Well, she wants to be comfortable while you do it. She doesn't want the spring from your old busted mattress jabbing her in the ass. So up your bedroom game and do her on a ghost bed. The link is in the description. Your purchase helps support the show, and she's going to come back for mo. Win-win. See what I did there? Remember, use the link in the description. Oh, you'll sleep better too, but we all know what you hornballs really care about. Do her on a ghost bed. All right, joining me this week is one of the coolest independent wrestlers I've ever seen. He's a member of one of the greatest tag teams in Arizona wrestling history, the Tribe. He's a strongman competitor, and he's the licensing manager for WWE 2K games. His shoot name, can I say that? Shoot name? Shoot name is Steve Islas. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I find it funny because I've been following wrestling for years, clearly. And I know that it's funny because they're guys who are in the business, wrestlers that are in the business. It's sort of like they sort of look down on marks a little bit. And so and I'm a total mark. And I'm afraid of using business slang when like I haven't earned it. You know what I mean?
I got you. I understand what you're saying exactly.
Yeah.
It's some wrestlers look down on, like, not all. Some of us are actually. I mean, you had to be a mark to like want to do this. You grow up a fan watching it, and it's like that's what gets you hooked.
Got it.
If you weren't a fan of it or a mark for it, then what are you doing in the business?
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems to me that there are people that are in the business, not necessarily because they love wrestling, but it's like a foot in the door for entertainment, so they learn it and then they move on to bigger and better things, maybe, which is a shame because all of us that are watching it because we love it,
Yeah, exactly.
So are you semi-retired from wrestling now?
Oh yeah. I've been semi-retired since like 2008. When I started doing this job. So to me, because you never really retire from wrestling. You just stop. You just stop and you're done. And that's how I look at it. And a friend of mine calls it quit tire. You quit tire from wrestling. But yeah. So I cut my bookings back a lot. I mean, this was my job, full time, wrestling. And when I switched over to start working for the video games, I basically went into semi-retirement because I would only do bookings every, maybe one a month, maybe two a month, cut it down to just a few here and there, for fun.
Okay. The reason why I ask is because I saw a video that you did for United Wrestling Network. And it was done last year. And you're like, yeah, I think this is it. This is my last year. I don't want to say I'm retired, but, So,
yeah. That's never going to end.
You know what? It never does end too, right? You still see some of the legends come back, for one more. I got one more in me.
I got one more run, brother.
Yeah. So I'm positive that you don't remember this, but the first time I saw you live, this was actually at the very first time I actually went to a live wrestling event. This was several years ago, maybe like 2017. I can't remember exactly, but it was UCW Zero's 15th anniversary show in Salt Lake City.
Okay.
Rey Mysterio was the main event. And I actually got a picture taken with you and Hawaiian Lion by my girlfriend at the time. And now that picture is lost forever since she and I broke up, a few years ago.
Oh, she kept the picture?
I think she posted it. It was on her camera and she posted it on her Facebook. And like, we haven't been in touch in a couple of years and it's just gone now. I was looking through it like in my Google Photos archive and I was like, God bless, I don't have that picture.
We'll have to get another one.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, the cool thing about that event was, I grew up a huge wrestling fan, like in the 80s. During like the 90s, like when I was in high school and stuff like that, I didn't really follow it that much. But in the Navy, I joined the Navy in 1998, and like Monday nights on the ship was just like an event. On the ship, everyone in the berthing, we'd all gather around and watch wrestling, and so I got really into it. And then I got married, and my now ex-wife hated wrestling, so I never watched wrestling until we got divorced. And when I got divorced, I was like, I wonder what's going on Raw. And I turned it on. I just got hooked again. And then I started looking into local independent wrestling events because I had no idea that there was local independent wrestling. And I started looking more into that. And I was like, oh, there's actually a bunch of small little things in like Salt Lake City and in Denver that I could easily go to. So going to that UCW show was the first time I actually went to a live event. It was awesome. I went down after the show was over, went down by the ring just to see what the ring felt like. That shit's hard as hell. I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah.
And then I got to meet you in Hawaiian Lion. So that was a really awesome experience. Speaking of Hawaiian Lion, when did the two of you guys meet?
Well, we met in 2001. So Hawaiian Lion wanted to start wrestling, and a friend of mine started to train him, and then brought him to one of our shows that we were doing, and that's where we met. And then I was like, okay, well, I can polish you up, because he was just getting the basics in. And then he started coming to my wrestling camp, and I was running a wrestling school for a few years, and I trained people like Mike Knox, Luther Reigns, people that have gone on to bigger things with WWE. And so that's where Hawaiian Lion and I met. And then around 2002, we decided to start teaming up as a tag team.
2002, you started?
Yeah.
Okay.
So wow. 20 years.
Jeez. Yeah. Now I was going through some like vintage footage on YouTube last night, and like we were saying before we started recording, there's tons of stuff. If you guys just go on YouTube and just look up Navajo Warrior, Navajo Warrior Wrestling, there's just tons of stuff out there. And I found footage of you, and you're going to the ring with someone that was painted up very much like you. Mm-hmm. However, it didn't look like Hawaiian Lion to me. And it might have been him younger, but did you ever have other tag team partners in the tribe?
Yeah. So I had another tag team. We were called Native Blood. So it was
okay.
Yeah, Ghost Walker was his wrestling name. And we were in wrestling a brother, Native American brother tag team. Okay. And so we teamed together for about 4 years. No, it's actually shorter than that. Probably about 2 to 3 years. And we were all over, as my first part of my career, I was wrestling as a singles, and then I started teaming up with Ghost Walker. We did a couple of years together where we were wrestling, all across the United States, overseas, Japan. And then he wanted to change the character and kind of go on his own. Mm-hmm. So we split up as a team. And then that's how Hawaiian Lion and I started to become a tag team, because Japan was calling and wanted the team to come back. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, there's just me now, so yeah. Like, do you have another partner that you could bring? And I said, yeah. So they called us New Native Blood, which when you put new, that's a kiss of death on the name. So the tribe was something we came up with, after that, because we didn't want to be like a 2.0 or the new version of something,
right?
Like the new Midnight Express or the new Blackjacks, or any of those teams that they tried to reboot.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Got it. All right. So now I saw you live on one other time. This was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I was in California, and I took a guy that works for me. We went up to Port Hueneme, and we saw a taping of Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. Okay. And you were there, and I was like, oh, wow, the tribe's here. Now you primarily work Championship Wrestling from Arizona, right?
Yeah. Well, we first were starting when Championship Wrestling from Hollywood started. Yeah. We were part of that first crew, and Hawaiian Lion and I actually won the tag team titles, and we held those we're the longest reigning tag team champions for the company. And at that time, they were associated with the NWA. So It was the NWA Heritage tag team titles, and we held those for over 500 days. And then Championship Wrestling from Arizona started up, and so it was a branch off from Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And so since it's our backyard, we're right at home, we started doing the stuff with Championship Wrestling from Arizona.
Got it. Speaking of NWA, they've clearly rebooted within the last few years, and I can't think of the guy's name, but basically the producer for Championship Wrestling for Hollywood is now the producer for NWA Power, right?
I believe so. That would be. I'm drawing a blank on his name, Billy, but not Billy Corgan, but the Billy that was producing for us under David Marquez.
David Marquez, that's the name I was thinking of.
Yeah, so David's not associated with the NWA now. He was. He was on camera talent though. He wasn't doing the production for them.
Oh, got it.
Okay. He was doing the interviews and ring announcing for them, and then his obligations with his Championship Wrestling and the United Wrestling Network, are too many for him to be going back and forth. So
Sure. Yeah, because one's on the East Coast, one's on West Coast, and I imagine with like COVID and all that nonsense, like traveling would be difficult, and you have to pick one, I guess. Have you guys been out to power tapings? Have you guys had the opportunity yet?
No, actually, one of my students, a good friend of mine, Mike Knox, actually just reached out. He's on tonight's episode, actually, as we're recording this, taking on Trevor Murdoch for the championship.
Oh, for the title. Okay. Yeah. Because Trevor's the champ right now.
Yeah.
He's got the 10 pounds of gold.
There it is. But yeah, so Mike was in contact. He reached out to me actually and was asking if I'd be interested in coming out. So we'll see. I told him, I said, if we can make the dates work, then I'd love to, just I can still go. I can still get in the ring. I can still bump. I can still work. I can still do everything I've been doing. So as long as I can still give a performance that I'm happy with, then I'm willing to go.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was curious about that. I really like the reboot of NWA. It's been a really fun show to watch, actually. Even just the small studio crowd, it's really compelling. I like it. Yeah,
it takes it back to that early 80s studio wrestling.
Yeah, definitely. Now if people check out your Instagram or pretty much any promo videos or pictures of you, you're often seen with a leather strap. Mm-hmm. What's the significance of the strap?
So the leather strap is part of my character as Navajo Warrior, and I'm basically the king of the Indian strap match. Which we don't call it the Indian strap match anymore because of political correctness and what have you. But
sure.
we just call it the strap match. So the story behind the strap match, the Cheyenne and the dog soldiers, when they used to go into battle, they would take a leather strap and basically have it attached, one end of it attached to themselves, and the other end they would stake to the ground. Mm-hmm. And that way they would not retreat. They would fight to the death and hold their ground. So when we brought it into wrestling, it was brought into wrestling long before I came into it. Yeah. But my story behind it is then, once one end of it is tied to me and the other end is tied to my opponent, we go until the fight's over. Yeah. Two men are going to go in there and fight until the match is done, and nobody's going to run away. No one's going to, take a count out. It's going to go until the finish.
Is it similar to, there's variations of it, right? Like the Texas rope matches and
the Texas bull rope or the Russian chain match, or, different ones where you're, attached to your opponent. Yeah. And that way it's basically to keep the two, together and not let one of them escape from the other.
Is it the same concept where you have to touch like all four posts?
In some of the rules, they do it that way. I prefer pinfall or submission, because that way there's a definite winner. When you're going to touching all four corners, it's you're rendering your opponent, helpless enough to be able to drag him to all four corners. But to me, I'd rather it be a definite. I would either put his shoulders to the mat or I make him quit.
Yeah. In the ring.
Yes.
In the middle. Right.
Right in the middle. Right in the middle.
So you've been doing this for 30 some odd years, right?
Yeah. 31 this year. It's my 30.
31. Okay. Yeah. And you've gone by some other characters and names throughout your career. So just going through YouTube, you've mentioned Iceman in one thing. Sean Dakota, the Navajo Kid, Steve Gray Eyes.
Yes.
Were there any other characters that were the names at least really made you cringe, or were you always happy with?
Well, those are all names that I came up with as far as, Gray Eyes was from a family name actually. So
is it? Okay.
And so honestly, I wish I would have gone with that before Sean Dakota, but Sean Dakota just kind of rolled off the tongue, for a young Native American wrestler. It's like, okay, Sean Dakota, because that was for the WWF.
Right.
But my very first match, I was, getting ready to go to the ring, and music starts to play. Ring announcer, announces my weight, my hometown, and then he says Vince Valdez, and I'm like, we were being taken out on a golf cart, so I look over at the driver and I'm like, who's Vince Valdez? He's like, I guess that's you. So. And so I get to the back after the match, and the promoter, he's like, I told him Vince Valdez for your name. And it was my very first match, so I really didn't what can I say? I couldn't. really argue with it too much, so I just went with it, but I never used that name again. It was after that I was like, oh no, not Vince Valdez.
So besides Vince Valdez, have you ever had any other names like assigned to you, or did you get to pick all your other names?
I got to pick them.
Okay.
So
that's good, because that seems, especially in WWE now, like that, it's rare that people get
it is very rare
names now, and it is because of intellectual property, right?
Exactly. That way they own it, and then so usually when a wrestler's made a name for himself, they own their name, like a Samoa Joe,
right?
Then you can work something out to where you can keep that name, but it's all legal and everything else that you need to go through to make sure it works for both ends, for the talent and for the company.
Yeah. What frustrates me more than them rebranding, because I usually follow these guys in, Ring of Honor or Impact or something like that. And then they go to NXT and they get a new name. I'm like, darn it. All right, fine. Uh-huh. This is their new name now. Let's see where they go with this. And then NXT will do a great job building up new talent, just making them look like stone cold killers. And then they get called up to the main roster, and it doesn't always happen, but it happens so frequently that it's like, oh man, they ruined that guy,
Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
That's so sad. Like they recently just did that with Killer Cross. And now they let him go, which is even worse.
Exactly. Went through all that change with him, and then now he's no longer with the company. But I can only imagine how hard it is, because you have, even though it's under the WWE umbrella, you have your NXT creative team and you have your Raw creative team and your SmackDown creative team. So sometimes they don't mesh. And so when a talent gets pulled up to the main roster, now it's basically like they're starting over again, even though they've already made a name for themselves in the WWE, but it's under NXT, so it's difficult, especially for the talent, because they've been working so hard on their character and everything that they've been doing while in NXT, and then for it to just get changed,
Mm-hmm. Do you think that that's one of the kind of blessings with like the independent circuit, though, is that you have full creative control over your character, and it's sort of like you get to eat what you killed at that point, right? Like
yeah, for sure, because it's something that you're passionate about, something that you're focused on. You're creating your own character. Who is the Navajo Warrior, and that's everything that I myself put into my character, and what I want to put across to the fans. And so if it succeeds, it succeeds on my terms. And if it fails on my terms, because I'm the one that's going out there and putting it together myself. Mm-hmm. And then when you get handed something, it's sometimes it's a little different. You might not have your heart in it. You might end up like a Terry Taylor who's wrestling as Terry Taylor for all these years, and then he becomes the Red Rooster, and it's like, I don't like that. Mm-hmm. And then you're labeled with a character that you don't believe in, and it comes across in your performance.
Yeah. Would you say, though, that the sign of a really good talent, though, is someone that can be given a character that sucks and then they turn it into gold? Like I would say, like Dusty Rhodes, for instance, right? With the polka dots.
Yeah.
He was like, all right, you want me to go out there in polka dots? I'm going to get these polka dots over.
Exactly. That is a true sign of really great talent, to be able to just take whatever's given to them and make it work.
Yeah. So in some of the videos I've seen from the archives, at least like the WWE ones, did you do mostly like enhancement talent work, or did you ever have any kind of storyline or run?
I didn't have a run as a talent. I was doing a lot of dark matches, so where they were looking at the character and they were seeing if it was something that would fit, with what they were looking for. And so I'd get feedback, and I'd be there. Sometimes I'd be there, 4 or 5 weeks in a row, and every night, they'd change something, or come out with a headdress on, without a headdress on, with war paint, without war paint, be a good guy, be a bad guy, and just to see what, if anything just kind of grabbed their attention. Mm-hmm. and made it work. And when the time came, to where it was like, okay, well, can offer you something with the developmental, it didn't work for both parties, on their end and my end, to where, we couldn't get a contract worked out, something to where it would work for me, or where they would offer something that was like, okay, yes, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
But I loved every bit of what I got to do. I would do dark matches, I would do enhancement matches, I would do different skits, the crooked judges for the pose down between, Scott Steiner and Triple H, or the New Day versus the Usos rap battle, being part of the crew for the Usos, or different things like that, to where it's like, oh, you're still doing something and getting involved, and to me it's just a lot of fun. So
now, how does that work? I just sort of gleaned this just from my observations over the years, but it seems like when WWE comes to town, they sort of look for local talent to do some of that, like who's that guy that was doing I don't know, he was coming to the ring dancing or whatever, and he had a whole bunch of dancers in the background. They've done that a couple of times.
Yes, No Way Jose. Yeah,
No Way Jose. Like the guys in the background are usually like local wrestlers.
Yeah,
and sort of getting a little bit of a shot, or at least a little bit of local work or whatever.
Yeah.
God, there was a gal that she wrestles in Utah, Marty Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know Marty?
Yeah. My wife actually trained her.
Oh,
so
okay.
Yeah.
I got an autograph of her. She signed for my son in his bedroom. She's totally cool. And she's got like the best memory ever, because I met her at UCW 0. And then like 3 years later, or a few years later, I saw her on some other thing, and she was recently on AEW or whatever. And I was like, oh, hey, congrats on being on AEW Dark. And she was like, oh yeah, hey, say hi to your son Braden for me. I was like, what? Like,
yeah. She's incredible. She remembers everything, and it's just part of her charm. I love it.
Yeah, that's impressive. So getting out the WWE stuff, did you basically started then in the territory system? Is that roughly when you started, like maybe the tail end of that?
The very tail end. The territories were dying out, and it was but it was just get work where you can get it, and I trained in Arizona, and my trainer, and see that back then, no internet, no way to find out how do you become a wrestler, any of that. I was just lucky enough to run into someone that I recognized from television and say, I want to be a wrestler, because something I wanted to do since I was a kid, and never knew how to do it. And then it just went from there, and I started training, and then started training in 1990, 91, had my first match. And then I would do reservation tours. We'd do up in Northern Arizona, Utah, New Mexico, the whole Four Corners area, Colorado. And we would do these week-long tours. And that's where I would get to wrestle on cards with Superfly Jimmy Snuka, or the Honky Tonk Man, or, guys that were on television that could help groom me and teach me, because I would ask them, please watch my match. Please let me know, if there's anything I can change, anything I could do. And I would take all of that advice and kind of like ball it up and see what worked, and I'd keep what worked, and what didn't work, I tossed to the side, so, but yeah, it was like the very tail end of the territories, and
what would you say is the difference between wrestling territories and the current independent system?
Repetition, dates, working, because you would wrestle, sometimes 3 to 4 nights a week, sometimes 5 nights a week. Now with independence, you're lucky if you get 2 a weekend, a Saturday and a Sunday, or if there's happens to be a Lucha Libre show on a Sunday, or, so you're not getting as much wrestling time in now as back then, and that's what kind of prepared me to make this into a career. I was an independent wrestler making a living in independent wrestling, which was, something that's very hard to do, but you had to learn how to hustle and how to get those bookings, schedule them all out so that it worked, and you're not going to try to, wrestle one night in California and then end up trying to be somewhere on the East Coast the next night. You kind of like lay it out so that you make the trip along the way, picking up dates as you go along, and then make your way back. And so, it's all stuff that you would learn basically from the territory system, because you would have a schedule of cities that you would do. and you would wrestle in these different cities, and then it would kind of rinse and repeat. You'd work your way up, work your way back, and then the tour would be over. So.
How does booking work? Do you have to reach out to promoters, or do they usually reach out to you?
So when I first started, it was reaching out to promoters, and it helped to, back then, no internet. So it was black and white 8x10, a VHS cassette of a couple of matches, your bio on the back of the 8x10, and then you'd mail them out, to all the different promoters that you would get information from through the guys like the Jimmy Snukas and the Honky Tonk Mans and the Greg the Hammer Valentines that were wrestling on all these shows. They would, if they saw something in you, they would help you. They'd say, okay, yeah, send it to this person, send it to this person, put my number on there. That way they can contact me and vouch for you, that kind of thing. So having the right kind of people vouching for you and putting a good word in for you also helps, because you're thinking about how a promoter has to look at his budget. It's like, is it worth bringing somebody in, paying for a flight, paying for their transportation if they don't fly, if they drive themselves in, plus their payoff to wrestle, when I have local guys here that I can, fit in my budget a lot easier. So yeah, it was one of those things where it was really different. We'd reach out at first, and then once you had a good fit with the different promoters, then they would start contacting you for the things that they had coming up.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah. Cause I've always noticed, guys, especially like if they get released or, maybe they work for a company like Impact where they're allowed to also take independent bookings and stuff like that. That occasionally on social media, they'll say, hey, I'm available for bookings. This is my email address and stuff like that. So I was just curious how that all worked.
Yeah. It's changed over the years to where now it's, with social media, it's made it a lot easier. Everything's a click away. You can email someone, you can instant message someone, you can send them, hey, here's a link to my match, and then boom, just click the link. Now it's a lot easier. But it's also a lot harder because now you're kind of flooded with, a lot more wrestlers or wannabe wrestlers and training wrestlers all wanting to fill these spots. Yeah. And, so it makes it a lot harder because the quality guys are going to want quality pay.
Sure.
And then you're going to have somebody that's going to come in and say, well, I can do it for a lot less than, then you run into those type of things where.
Yeah. That's rough though. But I would imagine that smart bookers will know that, well, yeah, this guy's less, but this guy's a bigger draw.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
If they have any kind of experience as a promoter, then they'll do the right thing, I would say. Right.
Yeah, the good ones do. The good ones do.
What's funny? Cody Rhodes, when he left WWE, he went on like all around the independents, and he had this like list of dream matches and stuff. And one of the things that he said he wanted to experience is like, or have what kind of experience he wanted to have is like that real carny experience with like, real carny type promoter. Like, do you have what's the worst carny type promotion story do you have?
Well, that's the thing, like, to me,
okay,
carny I don't look as a negative, but it's been turned into one. So where they put that label on a shady promoter or somebody who does things just not by the book, they've labeled them carny, even though, I mean, really, that's what we came from. We came from the carnies, that was what we do is carny, we're trying to pull the wool over people's eyes and make them believe that we're out there, fighting. But anyway, but to put it in that way though,
let's say shady promoter then.
I've had them to where I've gotten my plane ticket, travel, get there, wrestle, no pay. Whereas with pay, I'll send it to you. And then of course, 20 years later, still haven't gotten that money, or that type of thing. Yeah. Or you drive yourself to a promotion. Let's say it's California. Okay, that's only like 5 hours away. This is what my gas will be. This is this. Okay, we'll take care of that on the end when we get there. Oh, sorry, the house wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I'll take care of you next time, kid. That type of thing. Where it's like, so now I'm out that money again. That type of shady promoting. One time we were sent to Singapore and Malaysia, and we get there, everything's first class. first class flights, hotels, venues are huge. We get there and the houses aren't what they expected. They're getting these 10,000 seat buildings, and they're maybe getting a couple thousand people in them, so they look really empty. And we noticed something was wrong when halfway through the tour, all of a sudden our hotel is a pay by the hour hotel, and now we're on a bus going to this next town instead of a quick flight over, and things like that. It's like, well, okay, something's up.
Yeah.
And then, it came to the point to where it's like, oh, well, I know we've got like 4 more days left, but I can't pay you. And like, okay, well, then you're going to get us our flights home then, that type of thing, So as a group, we all, the wrestlers, we all decided we're leaving, so we were able to actually get our flights changed because the promoter wasn't going to pay to fly us home.
Yeah.
Get our flights changed, and get back home. So it's one of those things, you're stuck in another country.
Yeah. That must be scary.
It is. And then I came home, and I would say a week to 2 weeks later, that big tsunami hit.
Yeah.
Over there. And it was one of those things where it's like, wow, I just feel lucky that, we missed that, because imagine if we couldn't get home and we were stuck there and then that hit, it's like, oh.
Right. What if he wasn't shady and he was like, yeah, I've got plenty of money to pay you guys. And you're always like, great, let's keep wrestling. And then all of a sudden,
and then this thing hits, and yeah. So, but yeah, things like that happen. Here's a good story though on that end.
Yeah.
I did a show in Florida back in, say it was late 90s. And Spike Dudley was part of the promotion as far as like helping get talent. And so Spike's the one that booked me for the show. We get there, do the show, same thing, no pay. It's like, you got to be kidding me. So fast forward to a few years later, Spike Dudley's in WWE. I'm there on a show. We're talking. And then that show came up and I was like, yeah, I never got paid. And so Spike went and got his draw, which they don't do this anymore, but they used to be able to do it to where you're under a contract, you're guaranteed money, but at TV, you could get your draw. Like I say, I need a couple $100.
Yeah.
Pay you out your $200, then it comes out of your check later,
Sure.
So he went and got a draw and paid me what I was owed out of his pocket. And I was like, you don't need to do that. That wasn't, he's like, no, I booked you. I'm the one that got you booked for the show. I feel responsible. And he, took care of it, which I'll never forget that. That was something that he did not have to do.
Yeah.
And he went out of his way to, just pay me out of his pocket to take care of that because his name was attached to it.
Yeah, it sounds like a good guy then.
Yeah, great guy.
That's awesome. One thing I mentioned it to you on Instagram in the DMs, but the forbidden doors seem to be open everywhere now. AEW I feel like AEW started it by working with Impact and New Japan. And on Impact right now, they have a Ring of Honor Invasion storyline. And then Hell froze over and WWE had Mickie James, the Impact Knockouts champion, on the Royal Rumble. Mm-hmm. What do you think about these companies finally doing business with each other?
I think it's great. It's great because it's better for the smaller companies, honestly, because, AEW has more eyes on it than Impact does. So, of course, now they're getting to see that cross promotion and like, oh, wait, these guys are from where? Oh, I'll tune into Impact and see that. Same thing with WWE. They tune into the Royal Rumble and they see Mickie James. Well, of course, they remember Mickie James from WWE, but she's wearing the Impact Women's Championship. It's like, wait, what's Impact? And then they'll, look for it and then they'll see it. So it's going to draw more eyes to the promotion that's working with them. And this is nothing new. I mean, WWF was doing it with ECW. WWF was doing it with USWA out of Memphis, Smoky Mountain, when Jim Cornette's promotion. So it was all stuff that's been done before. It's just seems new again, because it's been so long. Ever since the WCW, WWF wars, it's changed, so you don't really see that anymore.
Right.
But yeah, so now it's like, it's always good. It's always good for the smaller promotion because it gets more eyes on them.
What I like about it as a fan is that the potential for dream matches is huge, right? You're like, oh man, it could be one of these days that Moose fights Roman Reigns. That would be awesome.
Yeah. That would be.
So your wife, her name's Michelle, right?
Yes.
Okay. Your wife, Michelle, she wrestles too.
Yes, she does. And that's how we met, actually, was through wrestling. So we met when she was a student, she was training in Utah, and it was my old trainer. So myself, Mike Knox, John Cena, we were going up to Utah to wrestle for him. And so he asked if we could come in a day early, take a look at his students and work on that. And that's how we met, actually. We went and we were running them through some drills and some workouts and stuff in the ring. And I just remember she caught my eye as far as like how she, was so aggressive in the ring and attacking the mat and taking her bumps and doing it. And whenever we'd ask for, we need 2 guys in the ring, come in, she'd be like one of the first ones to jump in the ring, and that type of stuff. So I always remembered her from that. And then it wasn't until, a few years later that we, started seeing each other, but we would, talk. And then when she was ready for matches, I would book her on events out here or help her get wrestling matches in other places. Because I've always supported women's wrestling. It was one of those things where it's like, there's a place for it,
Sure.
When I was running Impact Zone Wrestling, we always had a women's match on the card, and so so that's how we met. Yeah.
Okay. Now she also competes in strongman competitions too, right?
Yeah. So she's the reason I do them.
Okay.
Yeah. So long story short, the shortened version of it, COVID hits, gyms are closed. Myself and my training partner don't have a place to work out anymore. All the gyms are closed. So he said to me, "Hey, I have a buddy who's got a home gym." He said, "We can train there. We just throw him a few bucks when we work out." So we go, and that's when I noticed all of the strongman equipment, the Atlas stones and the yoke and the farmer's handles. And I was like, "What is all this?" He's like, "Oh, he's a strongman." I was like, "That's cool." So we're training at his place, and one day he invited us to come on a Saturday. We're going to pull a truck. So I came home. I told my wife, "Hey, we're going to pull a truck." I was excited,
Yeah.
So she came down, watched, and then she was like, I want to train for this."
No,
I was like, "Really?
okay.
Really?" I was like, "Okay." So we talked to Marshall, the trainer, and he's like, "Yeah." So he started training her, and then we went to watch Marshall compete. And on the way home from the competition, my wife looks over at me and she's like, "Do you ever think about?" And I'm like, No. Why would I? No. Before she could even finish the question, no. Why would I want to do that? That's crazy. That's it's insane doing the stuff that they were doing.
Right.
And then it just kind of got talked into it. It's like, no, try it. So, and then I did my first competition and was hooked and was like, all right, this is something I'm gonna pursue and just keep doing.
So, speaking of strongman, then, and for the guys listening that are living under a rock, can you just explain, well, like, what is strongman? How is it different than, like, say, powerlifting?
Powerlifting is MMA. Strongman is pro wrestling.
It's entertainment. Yeah.
It's very real weight, but we do it in a more entertaining way.
Okay.
Powerlifting, you're going to have your three lifts. You're going to have your bench press, your squat, your deadlift. Those are your three events. Now, strongman, you're going to do your squat, but it's not going to be just a regular bar with weight on it. It's going to be some crazy implement that looks like a stage with slot machines on it or something. You know what I mean? Like, it just depends on where the event is, on what they do. But and then you're also going to have these giant Atlas stones.
Those are the big like the big balls, the big rocks. Okay,
because they're big and they're stone there, and they range anywhere from 200 to 400 pounds, and you pick these up and you place them on a pedestal, and that's the competition. Or a Hercules hold, where you're holding 2 pillars. You have handles attached. You're grabbing on these handles and you're holding these pillars like Hercules. Yeah. Until you're and that's a grip strength event. Or a farmer's carry, where you're just carrying giant blocks of, it could be iron, it could be wood, it could be, so it's lifting heavy things any way you can lift them. And it's entertaining because you're seeing these monsters of men just doing these feats of strength that are, pretty insane.
Yeah, I think like one of the first ones I ever watched, guys were taking like car batteries and like seeing how high they can throw them and stuff.
Yeah.
And just silly stuff. I mean, but it's amazing. I'd much rather watch something like that than like baseball any day.
Oh yeah. Because baseball, you're not going to see 400-pound man that's like,
Right.
all tattooed up and just like, lifting crazy things. And it is entertaining.
I remember I was at a Buffalo Wild Wings one time and I was walking through to my table and I saw Strongman was on one TV. And so I told the waitress when we sat down, I was like, can we get Strongman on this? She's like, oh, you don't want to watch football? No, I don't want to watch football. I want to watch these guys pick up cards and stuff.
Yeah. Or strap a bus to them, and pull this bus, it's crazy.
Right. It is crazy. So I did have a question on how long it's been that you started that during 2020, you said during the COVID lockdowns.
During the COVID lockdown. So I had my first competition in November of 2020.
Okay.
And so did my first competition November of 2020. So then within a year, I was, qualified for national competition.
Yeah.
I believe I placed 9th in nationals, did a worldwide 2-lift event and placed, I think, top 100 in the world. So it's been insane just to watch how the numbers have increased and how my strength's increased doing it.
Yeah. And that's a short period of time too, because you're already sponsored.
Yeah. So it's something about seeing an old guy out there doing stuff that like draws attention, so it's like I turned 50 and let's see if
he dies out there.
So you've heard the saying old man strength. It's real. It's real.
Yeah. Yes, legit.
Yeah.
What's harder, pro wrestling or strongman?
Pro wrestling's harder mentally.
Okay.
Just because of the travel and the everything that's involved in it. It's not just going in there and having a match. It's traveling to get to the match. It's preparing for the match, being in shape for the match. You're taking care of your body. You're prone to injury in wrestling more than you are in strongman. Although strongman, your injuries are going to be a little more severe. Mm-hmm. Muscle tears are very common.
Yeah.
So it's been it's been different, but I love it. But yeah, wrestling definitely has been harder as far as on my body.
I was going to ask next, have you had any serious injuries doing either sport?
In strongman, no.
Knock on wood. Yeah.
Yes, knock on wood. In wrestling, torn ACL, broken leg, broken collarbone. Yeah, those were like the worst ones. The torn ACL actually happened right before my first tour of Japan and my first pay-per-view. I wrestled for the WWA on a pay-per-view, and if I didn't have a brace, there was no way I'd even be able to stand on that leg. It was just like it felt like it folded by both directions. So yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's scary because one of the things, like as a pro wrestling fan, I cannot stand, and I'm sure you can't either, is when guys call pro wrestling fake.
Oh yeah.
I'm like it's scripted, but the risk is real. It's like watching a professional stunt show.
Yeah.
And like these guys are taking some serious hits. They're landing weird. And now I see all these guys take these high shoulder bumps where I'm just like, are they landing on their head or are they? I'm like, no, that's their shoulder. Okay. I think they're fine. I think, but sometimes I'm like, oh, they missed that. They overshot that. They landed on their neck. And that's scary because there's guys that end up in the wheelchair, doing that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And, wrestling's changed so much just in the amount of time that I've been in it, and now the risk is even more because of everyone feels like they need to top the person before them.
Right.
And something bigger, something more spectacular. I'm going to dive off of instead of jumping off the top rope into the ring and landing on your opponent, I'm going to jump off the top rope out to the floor and then land on my opponent. And now you just took that safe wrestling ring. It's hard, but it's not as hard as the floor on the outside.
Right.
And, it's like, oh no, why would I want to do that? I'm going to jump out onto the floor, or I'm going to climb up onto this balcony and then I'm going to jump out onto the floor,
Right now.
So yeah.
It's funny too. I always hear podcasts where, the veteran wrestlers are always telling the younger wrestlers, like, you don't need to do all that, just really get them in a good headlock. And these guys, they never want to listen, right? The younger guys.
Oh yeah, no, they never.
And when you were younger, you probably didn't want to listen. I would have.
Oh no, I didn't want to listen. But I learned. I learned really fast when something goes wrong, and it's like, yeah, I don't need to be doing that anymore. I think this will work a little better. It's like, instead of doing that, backflip off the top rope, doing a moonsault. I was like, oh no, that doesn't need to be done. I can just, hit a nice elbow drop off the middle rope. How about that? Or something, right. A nice drop kick, something good. But it's also too, it's how you get the fans involved. If you, not to use too many inside terms, but if you know how to work, you can entertain and you can get a crowd going. And it drives me insane when people call that being lazy, because it's like, no, it's called being smart and being safe and still entertaining somebody. I don't know how many of the matches you watched on YouTube when you were looking through, but you weren't going to see a lot of high risk moves, but you were going to hear a crowd that was, really into what they were watching.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, I mean, I've seen you live. It's awesome. And you're not diving off of stuff. You're not doing flips and stuff. You're doing chops and you're doing body slams, but it looks rough as hell. Like, I'm like,
exactly.
That guy's beating the shit out of that guy right now.
Mm-hmm. And it's something that I took to heart when I was, learning. And it was an old saying that Johnny Valentine used to say, is like, I can't make them believe pro wrestling's real, but I can make them believe I'm real. And so I always took that to heart. I'm like, I'll make them believe that what I'm doing in there is real. And to me, that's a big compliment when a fan will come up afterwards and I'm signing an autograph or taking a picture and be like, yeah, I know those other matches are fake, but man, yours, oh, I know you beat that guy,
Yeah.
And I'm not, honestly being any rougher than anyone else. I just make it look like I'm being rougher. It's the body language and it's the emotion you put into it and everything that you put into it. It makes it look like, I'm body slamming you just like the next person does a body slam, except my body language is different and my facials are different and the sounds I make are different. And it makes it just look like I'm driving it through that mat rather than just slamming him.
Right. Yeah. It's like, the guy taking the bump isn't the only one that's got to be selling the move.
Right. Exactly. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Cause it's, you put some intensity into it. I mean, it looks like, oh man, he's pissed. He's really hurting that guy, but luckily, but for whatever magic reason, like the next week when you guys come back, you're not all bruised up. That's so weird.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see here. Take me. So going back to Strongman, I imagine like to get ready for like lifting heavy stuff. I mean, you obviously have to be able to lift heavy stuff, but you also have to eat quite a bit to get that mass, right? Like take me through a typical day of eating to get ready for Strongman.
When I'm getting ready for a competition, it's morning. I'll get a workout in before I eat because we're training at 5:30 a.m. So I'm up at 4:45. I walk the dog, grab a bottle of water, go work out, get my workout in, get home, eat a big bowl of oatmeal, protein shake, go back to the gym. I'll take my daughter to school, go back to the gym, get a cardio session in, come back, eat. And so then after I eat again, then it's shower, do a little work on the computer, eat again, so I'm trying to get something in like every 2 to 3 hours, trying to eat something. And it's usually stuff that's going to be like with the oatmeal, it's going to be a slower burning, stay with you a little longer. And then after that, it's going to be more protein based, and just keep going from there. So I'm eating every few hours. And then usually when it comes to competition time, I'm weighing in at about between 285 and 287. And then when I'm not competing, I'm back down to like 260, okay. So, and then, but it's like that old saying of mass moves mass, so I bulk up, and plus it helps fuel for that strength and just, getting ready to push heavy weight.
Yeah. That's one thing that I see that's different than, let's say like bodybuilders, for instance, right? Like they're they're sort of eating and working out for aesthetics, whereas strongmen are eating for performance.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
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 Ronnie Coleman.
Uh-huh.
He's a god. That guy, power. He wasn't just aesthetics. That man had power. That was yeah.
He ate a lot too. I've seen some videos
yeah.
where it's just him eating all day.
Yeah. Yes.
So you mentioned a cardio session. Like, how does cardio help with strongman?
Some of the events are moving events. So say your truck pull, your pulls, because now it's for timing. So you got to pull that from one end to the other, and the fastest time is going to win. So you're going to need to work on your speed. So you need to have that good cardiovascular intensity. And plus, I'm still wrestling, so I don't want to go 5 minutes into a match and be huffing and puffing.
Right.
I need to have my cardio up, and then so for your moving events, and then for my wrestling, I still need to have that cardio.
What kind of cardio do you like to do?
None of it. I don't like to do any of it, but I do.
What kind of cardio do you do? How's that?
I do the stair climber. I do the stair climber for an hour, and then I'll do like a slow walk on the treadmill after that. But the stair climber is the one that gets me, gets my heart rate going, and gets me sweating, and gets me moving. And then I cool down on the treadmill, to kind of slow, get my heart rate back down again, and then I'm good to go.
Got it. Yeah, I'm a runner. I like running, and I just interviewed a personal trainer, and he hates that I run. He's just like, running sucks. Like, why are you running? Like, it's bad for you. It's bad for your knees. Like, you should do squats and stuff. I was like, I don't like doing squats. I like running.
There you go. My youngest daughter's running a lot right now. She's boxing, so she's getting ready. She's trying to make the fight team. So part of the requirement for the fight team is the kids need to run 2 miles, and they need to do 50 push-ups consecutively, 50 sit-ups consecutively. And that's just to make it onto the kids fight team. Mm-hmm. So they can't stress enough how important it is for their road work. They got to have that road work, because they got to have that endurance to fight. Yeah. So she's running every day she runs. So it's either after her boxing practice or on days that she doesn't have boxing training, she just runs. And so I tried to run with her a little, and yeah, my knees were hurting. My calves blew up, like just, throbbing from, I was like, man, I don't know how to run. I don't know how to, pace myself well enough. I'm heavy footed when I run, I'm very, so.
I feel like, I'm not trying to convince you to run, but people that want to run, it's all in the shoes. You really have to have good, solid running shoes to brace that shock. And then otherwise, if you have that, then your knees don't hurt and stuff like that.
Yeah, I can move in short bursts. I can run 20 feet across, and with some good speed and good explosive speed. But yeah, when it comes to a mile, oh no, that's not.
Yeah, you don't need to run a mile when you're in a 20 foot ring.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mentioned at the beginning of the show, you're also a licensing manager for WWE 2K games.
Yes.
And you've been doing that for about 9 years. And before it was 2K, it was THQ?
Yeah. So THQ was doing the video games back when I started. So 2008, I started with THQ. And yeah, so then when THQ went out of business, 2K took over the license, I was acquired. Basically, it was one of those where, the people with WWE and with THQ were like, you're going to meet Steve, and so 2K hired me on. So
how did you get the original gig with THQ? Did you know somebody or?
No, originally I was, in a way, yes. And originally I was doing motion capture. So I was hired to mocap for the games, just doing the moves and doing the motion capture. And then that's when I got to meet the guys that worked on the game, the producers and everyone else that worked on the video game. And the licensing manager at that time, I got to see him. And so at the same time, I was also doing stuff with WWE. So I would see him at the WWE events doing his job. And so whether it be scanning or doing photos or doing voiceover work, or, I would see him. So it was luck alongside with this, just knowing the right person, because, he wanted to go on to making games. Mm-hmm. He's like, this is what I want. My passion is I want to make games. I want to be part of that team. Yeah. So he got an offer to start working on motocross games. And so he's like, I need to find my replacement. Mm-hmm. And he's like, do you ever think about doing this. And so he kind of showed me what he did. I shadowed him because I was like, I didn't have a match that night. I was like, all right, yeah, I got nothing else going on today. I'm good. So I just shadowed him and watched what he did. And I was like, yeah, I think I could do that. So I, talked with my wife. So what do you think? And then went from there, went and interviewed at THQ, went and interviewed at WWE, and then was offered the position and been going since.
What does a licensing manager do exactly?
Well, the title, it doesn't really encompass in the title of what I do exactly, but I handle the license, which is the game, which is WWE, handling that license. But what I do myself is face scans for the head scans for the game when they make the characters. I handle that as far as like scheduling, getting the talent lined up, making sure that everyone's doing their scans. Same with the reference photos, to take photos of their gear and everything that the animators need to make the characters. Scheduling mocap for when the motion capture, when the WWE talent comes into motion capture. Voiceover recordings. So all of that voiceover that you're playing, all that commentary that gets done, I schedule that, make sure that we're getting all the voiceover lines that we need recorded. So and then when it comes time to marketing, I'll be along for anything that they need talent for. So if they have them at a GameStop convention, or if they have them at an E3, or I'm there handling talent, making sure that the talent's taken care of and getting what they need so that they can, do what they need to do.
Got it. So when you talk about like motion capture, like that's like the black suits and like they have little dots all over them stuff, and it's actually the actual wrestlers are doing the moves, and you guys are just capturing their movements for the game. Yeah.
So we, as like myself, I'm not. I would be doing, let's say, Batista's moves. So it's like, all right, these are the moves we're going to do, and then do those moves. So because of their schedules, the WWE talent, we can't really get them to come in and do the motion capture for their own stuff.
Yeah.
So we have other wrestlers come in and do the motion capture for the games. So it's fun to see how many of them that have been doing motion capture go on to WWE. Like Ricochet was doing motion capture for us. Adam Pearce, who's with general manager, was doing motion capture for us. A lot of the talent. Then they end up in WWE and they're like, well, I can come back and motion capture my own moves. And I'm probably like, oh no, we can't do that, because yes.
So when you were first working with THQ doing motion capture, that you were a guy in a suit doing moves. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fat. So you're telling me that the commercial that they have right now playing, where they have Bobby Lashley in a suit hitting somebody with a chair, he doesn't normally take time off to go do that?
No, he takes time off to do the commercial shoot, but
okay, all right, a little inside baseball. All right, I think we're about an hour here. So, last question.
Yes, sir.
WrestleMania this year, who goes home with the Universal Championship, Brock Lesnar or Roman Reigns?
Oh, my money's on Roman Reigns.
Okay, why is that?
Yeah, just because he's on that swing right now. He's like got that rocket attached to him, and it's finally clicking as far as like with the fans.
Yeah.
For so many years that he was the face that they were pushing and pushing and pushing, and now that he's comfortable in what he's doing, you can tell. You can tell he's like, oh, man, I'm not a baby face. I'm the head of the table. He believes it. And you can tell he believes in what he's doing, and it shows. He's really changed over the years as far as like his everything about him. His confidence, his charisma, everything's been really good.
I think he's a better heel than he is a baby face.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What you baby face or heel? What do you prefer to do?
I prefer to baby face, which is funny because that's harder to do. It's harder to get people to like you than to get people to hate you. But I was always I went from being your traditional come on baby baby face to the just ass kicker and of course I'll take an ass beating, but I'll also kick your ass. I'm going to fight from underneath. If I have to, I'm going to fight. And that's where the whole come fight the tribe came from. We're not going to wrestle you, we're going to fight you. And so then that style fits, especially looking the way I look now. It's, you know, I'm old and grizzled and just like, you know, especially with the war paint on and the beard, it just makes it look like,
yeah. You know. Yeah. That picture that you shared the other day, and I shared it on my social media. I was like, dude, he looks like a complete brick shit house, right? Like in that picture, like he just looks like someone that will just stomp your face into the ground.
And that's the look I'm going for, you know?
Yeah. Mission accomplished.
It's funny. When I started, I was 215 pounds, maybe, you know? So going from that to being a 280 pound, you know, heavyweight, it's been a great journey, you know, just to kind of like change over the years and grow as a wrestler. You know, it's been awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's awesome to watch you.
Thank you.
Steve, thank you for joining me. Where can people find you online?
You can find me on mostly Instagram, Navajo Warrior 2K, the number 2, the letter K. And that's really where I like pictures. I like posting pictures and videos. Other than that, and then that connects to my Facebook, but that's mostly family, some wrestling fans, but it's mostly just family stuff. But on the Instagram, you're going to see Strongman stuff. You're going to see wrestling stuff. You're going to see my kids doing their stuff, you know, and you know, I'm a girl dad. I got 3 daughters, you know, so I got one who's now a school teacher, one, you know, little one's boxing, you know, so it's awesome. And then my oldest is living life and, you know, being awesome. So it's great. That's awesome. Well, Steve, thank you for joining me, man. Hey, thank you. Also, one more thing. Yes. Where we can get this awesome shirt, that awesome shirt, some awesome, you know, Navajo Warrior t-shirts, prowrestlingtees.com. Go to prowrestlingtees.com/Navajo Warrior. And I think they got like 4 or 5 different designs there, and they're pretty awesome. If you got one, I grabbed one of mine. I'll put a link to it in the description for sure. All right. You guys can we can be matchy. All right. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Steve. Thank you. Have a good one. Steve, let me tell you something, brother. Thanks for coming on the show. I've always wanted to do that. I'm a total nerd. No, seriously, Steve, anytime you want to come back, it was a great conversation. I learned a lot. It was actually really fun talking about the wrestling business with someone that's done it, that's been doing it for years, that's made a living on it. It's just fascinating. I'm going to have to get more wrestlers on. All right, guys, I hope you had fun with that episode. And like I said before at the beginning, please, you know, comment below. Let me know what you like. Leave us a review. Click those notifications, all that kind of stuff, and subscribe to the show. All right, guys, that's it for this week. We'll see you on Monday. This has been the Come On Man podcast. New full episodes served hot every Monday morning on your favorite podcast platform of choice. So subscribe now. Follow Paul on social media. The links are in the description. Now, go out and get it.